Hi, I'm Dave Chesson of Kindlepreneur, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about some of the words you might want to look at cutting out of your novel. This isn't just to improve your novel or make it better, it's also to make sure that it gets accepted if you're putting it forward with an editor, publishing company, or even for a book contest. And truth be told is that this really came to my forefront when I started working with publishing companies back in the day. I would sit in the board meetings where they would choose which books they were going to select and how they would market them. And what shocked me was there were many times that the editors would actually throw certain books out of the group just because they checked the first chapter and they started seeing certain words or phrases used that they were like, okay, that's a clear sign this book isn't as good as others. Now I know what you're thinking, that's probably a little rough and a little too much. But when you put it into context, it kind of makes sense. The publishing companies get hundreds of books and quite frankly don't have enough people to read through all of them. So they start looking for easy go, no go criteria in which to choose to throw out a book without wasting any more time or effort into it. And one of these things is certain words and phrases that, well, could be cut out. So in this video, I would love to show you a couple of these word categories that you should try to avoid. Also some top words that I saw that should definitely be cut out. And also a process that I love as an author to be able to go through and find those words and how to creatively change them in the right way. And again, while I might not agree with the process that the publishing companies are using when they're doing this, this is definitely a great tactic in which to just make your overall writing that much better. However, before I get into that, if you'd like to learn more about writing your novel, marketing your books, and publishing, be sure to hit that subscribe button to the right as well as the little bell icon so as to get notified when my next video comes out. All right, and with that, let's begin. Okay, as your English teacher has probably told you, there are certain phrases and word categories that we as authors should try to avoid. It doesn't mean you can't write them, it's just that, sometimes we overuse them or we rely on them a little too much. Some words, though common, don't add meaningful value and can actually dilute the impact of your message. These include vague intensifiers, fillers, and non-specific language, and much more. When it comes to categories of words, here are a few that editors have suggested you should avoid in writing unless you have a specific reason for using them. Adverbs, usually ending in ly. They can be useful, however, authors tend to overuse adverbs. Typically, there's a better action verb or descriptor to convey the same information. To be verbs. These include words like was, is, are, were, etc. While these are words that can be very necessary when writing, there are plenty of other words that could replace them. For example, John was tired. You could instead say John rubbed his eyes or John collapsed in his chair. Both of these get the same idea out there and don't overuse common verbs. Prepositional phrases. A prepositional phrase is a short phrase that ends with a noun. Typically, these increase the length of the sentence. An example of this would be in the garden, which could be changed to surrounded by garden greens. Run-on sentences. Run-on sentences, even while using proper punctuation, should be avoided as much as possible. To fix them, you must either insert a coordinating conjunction or separate them into two separate sentences. Tools like Hemingway app or ProWriting Aid are great at identifying these. Normalizations. These are verbs or adjectives that are turned into a noun when it would be better to keep as an adjective or verb. An example of this would be the phrase, she performed an analysis. Would be better off just said, she analyzed. Tautologies. Tautologies are words or phrases that have the same meaning as the word it follows, so one of them should be removed. Examples of this could be evening sunset or autobiography of her life. These would be better off if just shortened and adjusted to evening and of her life. There is no need to have both words with the same meaning in the same sentence. And by the way, if you hadn't ever heard of a tautology, I'm not gonna lie, I must have slept in English class when that happened. And when the editor told me about these, I'm not gonna lie, I had to write it down. Excessive dialogue tags. Although these are necessary when constructing good dialogue, as they inform the reader who is speaking, having too many can bog down your writing and become excessive. Eventually, the reader will know who is speaking and continue to add the tags will just slow down the pace. Overused words. As an author, we all have words that we rely on more than others. As you get to know your own personal writing style, you will start to identify these words. ProWriting Aid can help identify your most used words or phrases so as to help you clean them up. Okay, so now that we've covered some of the categories of words that you should try to avoid or at least improve on, let's go ahead and jump into some of the specific words you should definitely look at cutting out if you can. Feeling and thinking words. Felt, feel, think, wonder, ponder, understand, etc. These are all usually unnecessary, as they are signs that you are telling rather than showing. Try to get away from writing with the viewpoint of the character. Instead, get directly inside their head. Then, overused in narratives and can sound basic. Use sparingly and only when showing a clear sequence. You can also try rearranging your words and use and instead. Breathing. Words like breathe, breath, inhale, exhale, etc. are frequently relied on to show internal character emotion. Although this isn't necessarily a bad thing, they can be repetitive. Instead, try changing it up to show what causes the character to breathe differently. For example, instead of David rushed around the corner and inhaled sharply, use David rushed around the corner, a manic look in his eyes as his body tensed. Shrug, nod, smile, reached. These are common words authors have overly used again and again. While that doesn't make them bad words, we just want to make sure there is a more accurate and direct way of describing the situation at hand. An example, he reached for the hammer. Instead say, he lunged for the hammer. Really, very, just are common intensifiers, but often unnecessary and fail to add value. For example, saying really big can be replaced with massive or huge to make your statement clearer and more direct. That. Frequently unnecessary and can be removed from your sentence without losing meaning or value. Other specific words are adverbs ending in ly. Majority of the time, sentences that include completely, absolutely, definitely, basically will benefit more by just using an action word. Example, the drawer was completely full of socks. You could say the drawer was full of socks or jam-packed with socks. And finally, filler phrases. It would take quite a bit of time to go through every filler phrase out there, but some of the most common, as yet, in order to, with regard to, needless to say, due to the fact, for the most part, etc. I think you get the point. Now, these can be great transitioning words into different sections, but authors will tend to rely on filler phrases way too often, and they lose their value to your story. It is okay to be direct and stick to the point. Okay, so that was a lot. You might be scratching your head saying to yourself, haha, all right, how do I approach this systematically so as to improve my book? Well, your writing software should have a find and replace feature. I will be using my personal favorite, Atticus, to display in this video. Once inside your chosen software, let's start by searching your book for these 10 common repetitive words. Really, very, breathing, then, felt, needless, regard, additionally, continuously, that. See what you can do about replacing some of these if you notice that they have overly been repeated. With Atticus, you can quickly scroll through each occurrence and choose to replace all or certain ones. You can also go on a chapter-by-chapter basis or search out an entire book. Please note, not every software will look exactly as Atticus's does. Each software may have their own function instead of their find and replace, if they have this feature available. Okay, well there you have it. As you can see, there are certain categories of words and specific words that you should take time to look at, either removing or replacing with a much better word. And while again, publishers do use this as some way to kind of judge whether or not a book is professional or not, that's irregardless, because truthfully, we should always be looking to improve our craft and find ways to be able to make our books read that much better. So I hope you got a lot out of this video and that you now have a list, at least a strategy in mind on how you can improve your writing as you prepare your next book. And with that, I'm Dave Chesson of Kindlepreneur, signing off. Cheers.